Yeah, she used to come up a lot
Yep.
with Cal and
Yep.
stuff. She's
Yep.
chilling in the audience.
I got
There
her.
she is.
Already done. Okay.
Good
Well,
morning. Buenos dias.
Buenos
good
dias.
morning.
Thanks.
Hey, Elle. Ooh, Elle's got a hot new photo, everybody.
She's
I know. I went to
gorgeous.
the
I know.
NFT event last night where Amy,
I
you're a bit of a celebrity.
was I.
Yeah,
Oh, girl, we got to talk about that later.
yeah. Can't wait. Uniforce did a big release last night. Very proud of them.
I know, it's super crazy. Art Basel starting now.
I know they're sold out, but I think I might have it. Yeah, I think I might have it in to get in because all the tickets are sold out.
Keep me posted.
Yeah, I will.
Are you in Miami?
Yeah, I am in Miami working, staying in one of my friend's properties in South Beach. She has such a beautiful view. And it is 78 degrees right now.
Cool.
Amazing.
Right.
Café con leche and guarabas right now.
Mira, alguien molestando.
Cheryl, I sent you. Oh, there you go. There you go. Okay. We're almost ready. I'm ready. You ready? We're all ready. Let's get ready.
Yes, I'm here finally.
Okay. It's right on time. Okay. Now we just need to make it official with our special little sound over here. And here it goes. There it is. Welcome back, everybody. Happy Thursday, December 2nd, 2021. And here are your top headlines at this very moment. Right off the top, CNBC and a whole lot of other people reporting that Square is changing its name to Block effective December 10th, so a week from now, and renaming Square Crypto, which I guess is a separate company, to Spiral as its business shift towards technologies like blockchain, which is super interesting because that's what Jack Dorsey's clearly incredibly excited and hyped about, which maybe, just maybe, interesting coincidence that he just stepped down from Twitter as the CEO of Twitter. He's still the CEO of Square, which he just renamed as Block. And we were suggesting yesterday that he was stepping down from Twitter to focus on his incredible passion for bringing decentralized finance to the developing world through the power of the blockchain, aka Bitcoin in particular, he's very fond of. And sure enough, this kind of gives us a little additional validation for our wildly cooked up conspiracy theory, which is really no conspiracy theory at all because Twitter CFO Ned, we had the chance to talk to him one-on-one in a social audio room many, many months ago, 6 or so months ago. And he confirmed without confirming. You know what I mean? Like a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I asked him, hey, Ned, are you going to basically, is Jack so hyped up on Bitcoin that he's going to use Twitter to promote it as a way to do the payments? And sure enough, that's now start looking like it's starting to happen. So, Block, by the way, interestingly, is a three-dimensional version of a square. So I kind of love the poetic metaphor of renaming it Block because they actually have Square itself is not just a fintech; they also own Tidal, the music app, and it'll be incredibly interesting to see what they do with that. It's a Spotify competitor, and they have another interesting company in the Square under the Square umbrella. Cash App, indeed, which does have Bitcoin, which does now apparently operate with Lightning, just like Twitter, and Tidal, as I mentioned, and the TBD company, which it was unclear if TBD is part of Square or Twitter, because TBD is a rather DAO-ish-like effort of Jack Dorsey's to enable this vision of bringing decentralized finance to the world, and particularly to the benefit of the developing world. So we will continue to sit back and watch as that develops. And should we go on to the second story? Hold on, Pierre's. What's going on here, Pierre? Using the okay. Next one is from Washington Post. In its year-end threat report, MENA, aka Facebook, says it took down several global disinformation networks, including anti-vax groups, and groups linked to state actors. And it turns out that some of these anti-vax groups are themselves state actors, causing misinformation. These are not your ordinary misinformed, uninformed anti-vaxxers. These are bad governments trying to cause misinformation and fear and doubt and uncertainty in the amongst Americans, as you will soon see in these headlines. So we got the Washington Post reporting that. We have Facebook itself reporting it. We've got The Guardian, Axios, New York Times, Vice, Reuters, NPR, and CNET all reporting. And they're all reporting slightly different things. So let's pop through these in kind of quick succession, and you'll see the variety of kind of stuff happening here. First up, let's start with Facebook itself. This is the source of the information. They did a post today, which I will pin to the top of the Clubhouse room. Hopefully Cheryl can pin it to the top of the Twitter Space room. And it looks like this. Here's the link. Let's hope it works. It did. Good. It says, we're sharing a detailed end-of-the-year threat report on 6 adversarial networks we found and removed for coordinated inauthentic behavior. Basically, a group of accounts working together. We removed 4 of these coordinated inauthentic behavior, CIB groups, operations from China, Palestine, Poland, and Belarus, and Vietnam. 1 network in Italy and France, and 1 network in Vietnam for mass reporting. And what they mean by mass reporting is, we read that headline about a month ago. Some of you will remember that Facebook figured out that there was a whole bunch of fake accounts in Vietnam, and they noticed something very interesting about the fake account that were working together in Vietnam, that they all operated only exclusively between the very precise hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. with 1 hour off for lunch. And they happen to come from, geographically, the IP addresses of government buildings. And the content that they were flagging was content that was critical of the government. So that one was put to bed, and now they're being very public about that. But the other ones are also equally interesting. For example, it says the global threats we tackle have significantly evolved since we first started sharing our findings about coordinated inauthentic behaviors back in 2017. So this is about the 4th year of this report. In addition, adversarial networks don't strive to neatly fit our policies or only violate at one at a time. To account for this constantly shifting threat environment, we build our defenses with the expectation that they will not stop, but rather adapt and try new tactics. We add new layers of defense to address potential gaps from multiple angles. Our goal over time is to make these behaviors more costly and difficult to hide and less effective. Today, we're sharing our first report that brings together multiple network disruptions for distinct violations of our security policies. We removed a network of accounts that originated in Italy and France and targeted medical professionals, journalists, and elected officials with mass harassment. Okay, that's concerning. And then they did the Vietnam one for mass reporting. The network coordinated to falsely report activists and other people who publicly criticized the Vietnamese government for various violations in an attempt to have these users removed from Facebook. So the government was trying to get citizens removed from Facebook who were critical of the government. And then we removed 4 networks from Palestine, Poland, and Belarus and China for violating our policy on coordinated inauthentic behaviors, CIBs. Each of these networks targeted people in multiple countries at once. This month, we are sharing a more detailed analysis of the network from China, including, for the first time, specific threat indicators to facilitate further research into this deceptive COVID-19 focused activity across the internet. And here they are. From Palestine, we removed 141 Facebook accounts, 79 pages, 13 groups, and 21 Instagram accounts from the Gaza Strip in Palestine that primarily targeted people in Palestine, and to a much lesser extent in Egypt and Israel. We found this activity as part of our internal investigation into suspected coordinated inauthentic behavior in the region and linked it to Hamas. Number 2, Poland. We removed 31 Facebook accounts, 4 groups, 2 Facebook events, and 4 Instagram accounts that we believe originated in Poland and targeted Belarus and Iraq. We found this activity as a result of our internal investigation into suspected coordinated inauthentic behavior in the region, and we monitored the unfolding crisis on the border between Belarus and EU. And what this doesn't say, that the other sources do report, for example, let me find this one from the New York Times, I believe, is the one that spells it out. Maybe it was the Vice one. Maybe it was the Reuters one. That basically there were accounts from Poland that were pretending to be from refugees from the Middle East, saying, oh boy, we made a huge mistake coming to Poland. This place is terrible. We should have never came here. We should have go back. In a way to sort of create a narrative that, hey, if you're thinking of coming to the EU as a refugee, you might want to reconsider. What a very crafty campaign that is. And similarly, just on the other side of that very tense standoff at that border with Belarus, Belarus itself, according to Facebook, had some fake accounts. We removed 41 accounts, 5 groups, and 4 Instagram accounts in Belarus that primarily targeted audiences in the Middle East and Europe, and saying exactly the opposite. We found this activity as a result of our internal event, and they were saying the opposite, which is, hey, we should all go into Europe. So you have both parties at that border conflict, both weaponizing social media, because they're using Facebook and Instagram, and we have to assume they were using Twitter and all other social media apps at their disposal as well. And I think they're rather indiscriminate in their choice of which apps they're using. And the fourth one, it says China. We removed 524 Facebook accounts, 20 pages, 4 groups, 86 accounts on Instagram. This network originated primarily in China and targeted global English-speaking audiences in the US and United Kingdom. And the question is, what were they doing? Well, that's where the other articles fill in a little more of the detail. For example, from NPR, it says, the operations from China, the China-based operation came to light after the company was alerted to an account purporting to be a Swiss biologist named Wilson Edwards, who was spreading fake information about COVID, for example. And here's the quote: "This campaign was a hall of mirrors, endlessly reflecting on a single fake persona that didn't even exist, which the Swiss authorities were quick to point out that this Swiss biologist does not exist. We are Switzerland. We know our citizens. We have a database of our citizens. That person, that profile, claiming to be a Swiss citizen, we have no such person. We have no such Swiss biologist. And by the way, the big hint was the guy's name isn't even Swiss. That might have been the first hint. So the Chinese operation was an example of what Facebook calls a coordinated inauthentic behavior. We covered that. And
I have a question, Tyler. This is L. Is this where Stripe would come in at and do the verification of those people and those accounts?
exactly right.
I remember months ago we brought that up.
Exactly right. And this is why I said that for this and many more reasons, the idea of identity verification, certification of every user would go a long way to stopping a lot of this nonsense. That, in fact, a lot of the crazy misinformation, disinformation, and just outright stupidity and vitriol would likely be one of the consequences of enforcing identity verification inside of these social apps, which Australia is now pursuing full force. So we will find out. We no longer need to pontificate as to how this will play out, because Australia is going to test it, and we're going to get to see and watch and see how that plays out there in Australia. Okay, next one is the Reuters article. It says that Twitter said on Thursday, December 2nd, that's today, that it has removed 3,000 accounts which were operating as foreign state-linked information operations. The Twitter accounts that were removed were linked to operations attributed to 6 countries, including Mexico, China, and Russia, Twitter said in a blog post. Of the 3,465 accounts removed, 2,160 were linked to operations attributed to China, so 2/3 of them. The company also said it will start the Twitter Moderation Research Consortium in early 2022, next year, to study platform governance issues. Then there's this one from Vice, which says it's about the Swiss biologist that China was, promoting on social media. And the World Health Organization sources and a number of fellow researchers complained that they had endured enormous pressure and even intimidation from the U.S. side, according to this non-existent Swiss biologist. Anyway, then we go into the New York Times article, which says Twitter and Facebook hit back at Chinese propaganda campaigns. That's the headline, by Paul Moser. And Paul Moser, if you follow Asian news and Asian tech news, then you would know Paul is the New York Times reporter who covers China and has done a fantastic job of doing that over the years. So he writes, Twitter and Facebook said they have removed thousands of accounts connected to the Chinese information campaigns in the latest sign of Beijing's ambitions to shape the global narrative around the country. In a notice posted early Thursday, Twitter said it had taken action against 2 networks comprising of more than 2,000 accounts that work to undermine accusations of human rights abuses in the western Chinese region of Xinjiang, where Chinese officials have interned Muslim minorities and subjected them to harsh surveillance. Both networks, Facebook and Twitter, promoted videos shot within Xinjiang that sought to portray the region as one of prosperity and freedom. One of the networks, which Twitter attributed to the CCP, also coordinated verbal attacks against activists and articles critical of China while bolstering Chinese state media and positive comments and likes. The New York Times and ProPublica first identified a larger number of accounts in the network in June, in a June report about the campaign to project normalcy in Xinjiang. And David Chang jumped in the room 24 hours ago here to reveal an article from the BBC that it's the paper trail leads right to the top leadership in the CCP itself, and they even named Xi Jinping, that he knew and knows and was ordering all of this activity that's happening in Xinjiang that they pretend doesn't exist. And that was reported by the BBC yesterday. The Axios reports activist movements drive misinformation mayhem is their headline. And it talks about, how these state actors are weaponizing social media, etc. And then we've got The Guardian. Facebook takes down Chinese network behind fake Swiss biologist, blah, 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 blah. So that's kind of your roundup of the second big headline of the day. That was inspired by these year-end reports from both Facebook and Twitter. And what's one other interesting related point is that they're becoming very public about this. They're being very transparent about this unsavory activity that's happening on their platforms. And I have to wonder that in years past, they might have they knew that this stuff was happening and they kept it under wraps and they weren't transparent about reporting it, but now they are reporting it. And I wonder, is that because if they don't report this stuff, then what could possibly happen, because Facebook keeps everything very transparently open to all of its 60,000 employees, that some employee who doesn't work in this department of catching these, fake accounts would get access to those files, not really know much about it because it's not their area of expertise within Facebook, then leak it to journalists who know even less about the inner workings of Facebook and how they do these things. And then that journalist would cherry pick out their favorite 5 words out of all of it, and then write a sensationalized headline about how, China's using Facebook to punish Uyghurs, or
Well,
how.
Tyler,
Yeah,
they're really trying to control the narrative, right? All of these articles have been coming out about them over the last few months that have all been negative and about how they don't do anything. So now they're just trying to control the narrative.
yeah. But this is my point: is Facebook realizes we need to leak ourselves and provide the critically important context that goes along with these leaks and show what we're doing in our efforts to combat them, so that somebody internally doesn't share it with a really activist journalist who intentionally distorts and misinterprets with the intention of misinforming and lying to paint Facebook in a negative light, which the Wall Street Journal has done the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and the lot have done that repeatedly over the recent weeks with these Facebook files. So they've now figured out how to address the ill intent, the intent to do economic sabotage and terrorism on Facebook. They just have to come out with the information themselves and provide the critical context up front, rather than have this very regrettable scenario in 2021 where the Wall Street Journal feels it's no longer necessary to cover the news as news, that they have to act as activists and cherry pick out the most sensational details and then pour gasoline on them and make them as ridiculous as possible to further inform everybody as to what's happening. And then that puts Facebook in a defensive mode rather than in an offensive mode. And then they're constantly having to correct or attempt to correct or attempt to reshape the narrative that's out of their control. And that's really what happened with the Facebook whistleblower files, because as you can see, what has been the net outcome of the Facebook whistleblower stuff? Legally, from the government perspective, essentially nothing, essentially zero. It was essentially useless and meaningless. However, it is possible, I am totally willing to concede, that David Marcus resigning yesterday, who's one of the absolute most important people in the Facebook organization, his resignation could in fact be tied to this whole whistleblower brouhaha, because what David Marcus was leading was the digital currency and digital wallet, which requires a whole lot of trust for people to use. And the trust in Facebook might be low, and maybe even at an all-time low, which is making it very difficult for him to get the meetings he needs to have and the partners he needs to get to bring that whole vision to fruition. And that could be a consequence of the low trust that's a result of the headlines that Facebook has suffered in recent days. So in an inadvertent way, there has been potential real casualties in this misinformation kind of game that's going on. Next up is number 3, Bloomberg sources. Apple, which cut its projected iPhone 13 production targets for 2021 by up to 10 million units, is now telling suppliers that it may not make up the shortfall in 2022. Apple, suffering from global supply chain crunch, is now confronting a different problem, which is slowing demand for the iPhone 13, which I can empathize with as an iPhone 12 Pro Max owner myself. Apple, it's not easy to continually make a new device every year that outperforms the previous year by a significant margin. That's easy to go from year 1 to year 2, and 2 to 3, and 3 to 4, and 4 to 5. But as you get to year 13, 14, 15, the incremental improvements of a 5% better battery life isn't really going to get me to throw down another $1,000. That it just is what it is. We're just sort of at the diminishing return level of the curve for these smartphones, which is, what a nice coincidence, we're going into a whole new platform, which is AR and VR. So they got a whole new platform and a whole new set of devices to sell. As that's a nice little segue for JT to jump into, because I think JT might have some latest breaking patent Apple news, if I recall correctly, JT.
Yeah, I was reviewing some of the patents that were introduced a few days ago. There was a whole bunch of them actually, but I think one of the most important ones here was sort of this IoT kind of framework that they're trying to develop. So the idea is that you're wearing your headset and you would be able to bring um, interfaces like your television or your MacBook Pro or your iPad into your headset, and you would be able to control those things within your AR headset. But they expand that beyond just monitors. They're trying to get things like the HomePod, for example. They use the speaker as sort of like a sample thing where you're able to control the volume either up or down on the speaker, or turn on or off the Apple TV, or change the channel, or even like control the brightness of a living room lamp. So this whole concept of being able to control things in your home is something that sort of Facebook also was experimenting with respects to their EMG wristband. And so they demoed that same thing out, that you would be able to control things within your environment, either in the office or at home. But I'm just hearing a small echo on my end.
Because are you in Clubhouse as well simultaneously?
Let me turn that one off. Yeah, I think I was on. All right, cool.
Okay.
One of the patents that they talked about, some other ones that I found very interesting was the concept of, again, being able to bring that screen from your laptop into your device, but also being able to sort of expand the dimensions of your laptop screen. So you essentially are creating this virtual extension in 360 mode. So you would be able to bring content from your laptop and expand it outwards to different locations spatially within your surroundings. That's pretty cool because we sort of started that demo during the World WWDC conference, where you were able to bring like content from your iPad to your MacBook Pro, and vice versa. And so they're trying to use the same concept, bringing content from your laptop and then bringing it to your AR headset in order to expand your field of view of that content. So I found that pretty cool. One other thing that they mentioned in a different pattern was the concept of being able to do object tracking and recognition of objects. Same concept that you would be able to take personal objects within your real world environment, attach sort of a electronic device to it, whether that's your iPhone or your Apple Watch or even a stylus, and being able to control the functions of that particular object in virtual and augmented reality. And so one of the cool things that you would be able to do, at least, is sort of take those key inputs from a keyboard or a mouse and be able to use those within whatever application that you're using inside your actual headset. I found those kind of patterns pretty interesting because we don't see them currently at the moment with the Oculus. The only one that I see is really the keyboard aspect, where you're able to bring that virtual keyboard in. But we also saw that Apple was working on something like that I sort of reported a few weeks ago as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, thank you for that.
Tyler, can I speak to the point you brought up just as we were getting into the headset?
Sure.
Yeah, just with regards to the maturation of the smartphone market, as signified by what you stated. That's the planet smiled, right? So there's this whole point with regards to getting a more green compute infrastructure for humanity, and so the demand culture for the upgrade every year, the fact that the 13 perhaps is starting to show that we've got enough compute power to do a lot of what we want to do, that the applications are demanding, and so there is a good point to that, and it's just kind of this is how these markets how they live. You got the growth, the maturation, and maybe just a little bit of, we're kind of seeing the other side of that. Of course, there's also the supply issues with the chips and things like that. But I just wanted to put a little button on that or pin on it to just kind of, on behalf of the Earth, a little bit of a sigh, a short-lived sigh, I'm sure, but just wanted to just put that note on there. The green compute infrastructure, the greening of our compute infrastructure is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the next article is also about Apple. That Apple announces the best apps and games of 2021 across iPhone, iPad, Mac, Apple TV, and Apple Watch, and the most downloaded app of the year. And so that's a chance to play our favorite show, Tech News Jeopardy. What is the most downloaded app of the year? I think I know the answer.
Clubhouse. Just kidding.
TikTok.
Facebook.
I think it's not even fair. I think you asked it before. I think it's TikTok.
Both Messi and I were correct. It's TikTok. Number one, top free iPhone apps for the year was TikTok, followed by, number two is much more difficult. So let's go ahead and get the music started here for everyone who wants to play at home. Watch out for Messi. She usually wins. And
Instagram.
Let's go with, no, that's number three was Instagram.
Snapchat?
Facebook.
That's number 4. Wait. Snapchat's number 4. Facebook's number 5.
Okay. Give us a second. Hold on. Oh,
Signal.
What's up?
What?
Signal.
WhatsApp?
No, WhatsApp is not even
Probably Facebook. I would say WhatsApp is probably Facebook.
Facebook's number 5. So we'll save number 2 as a mystery. Number 1 was obvious if you've been following along. It's TikTok. That was a gimme. We're leaving number 2 as a mystery. Number 3 we said was Instagram. Number 4, Snapchat. Number 5, Facebook. Number 6, Facebook Messenger. Number 7, Google Maps. Number 8, Gmail. Number 9, Zoom. Number 10, Amazon. And that leaves us with the outstanding question, what's number 2? What didn't
YouTube.
WeChat.
The answer is YouTube.
Oh, YouTube. Oh,
After you said Gmail, it's probably YouTube.
And let's see what else is in this list. So there's a whole bunch of there's top paid iPad games, top iPad apps.
Clubhouse is not even there.
Cheryl, Clubhouse is you're comparing apps with hundreds of billions of users. Cheryl, no, there's not billions of Clubhouse users.
I was kidding when I said Clubhouse. Wow. Just want to put that out there.
I think Cheryl's got Cheryl, it's not Cheryl, come on. I mean, we love Clubhouse, but it's not one of the 3 biggest apps on the planet. So, next article, shall we, is from CNBC, that Meta expands the number of eligible regulatory licenses for running crypto ads on Facebook and Instagram from 3 to 27. Meaning, Facebook on Wednesday announced its decision to reverse long-standing policy that prevented most cryptocurrency companies from running ads on Facebook and Instagram. And the question is, why was Facebook not allowing cryptocurrency companies to run ads on Facebook and Instagram? Well, I have a theory, which is they had their own ambitions for a cryptocurrency called Diem and a wallet called Novi until about 24 hours ago when David Marcus resigned. So is it a coincidence that 24 hours after the leader of Facebook's cryptocurrency resigns, they now are allowing cryptocurrency companies to advertise on Facebook and Instagram? You're all stunned. I can see the smoke coming from your ears.
I think maybe he opposed to it, but they didn't agree, so he just said, "Okay, I'm not going to work anymore. Let's go."
Well, my point is, Cheryl, you're missing the bigger implication, which is Facebook's no longer going to pursue.
Yeah, I think Facebook is abandoning their ambition, maybe.
Correct. So, and I think that is a safe assumption because David Marcus was such a powerful figure inside of Facebook that his stepping down from that role of running that product left a power vacuum that is nearly impossible to fill. So, the next article from the Department of Justice is charging an ex-employee of a company called Ubiquity with data theft and then attempting to extort the company while posing as a hacker or whistleblower, which has led Kevin Mitnick, one of the legit OG hackers in the history of the internet, or computing rather, to go to Twitter to say, here's an interesting twist on ransomware. Rogue insiders stealing company data and posing as an anonymous hacker. Ubiquity stock has dropped 20%. It appears the perpetrator thought a VPN service would cloak his real identity. And he got busted. Yeah, VPNs won't save you from that. And more interestingly, that because the stock dropped 20% when the ransomware hack was announced, that in itself is a monetizable event. The hacker moved the market on a stock 20%. Well, you might get caught for insider trading. If this person obviously is not good at covering their tracks to begin with, so I wouldn't suggest that they try to do some insider trading. But doing a cyber attack on a company and forcing that stock to drop a significant percent, say 10%, well, if you place your bet in advance, you could monetize the downward momentum on the stock when the ransomware attack is announced. By the way, let me try to ping in the person I just met with before I came in this room. An in-person flesh meeting, rather, with my friend Rickard, who's a very substantial personal wealth manager and investor, tech investor. And he informed me that one of his major portfolio companies that he directly manages was attacked by DarkSide. And he got involved with the cybersecurity agencies here in Interpol, and they tracked that down to DarkSide. And he confirmed that DarkSide is Russian and directly linked to Vladimir Putin. That's what he revealed to me in the meeting. Of course, we kind of already knew that, but let me copy the link to this room and send a quick little message to Rickard here. Where's his email? Let's see here. Rickard. Let's see. Can we invite him in here? Where's his email? Well, we'll have to do it for tomorrow. I'll have him come in and spill the beans for us tomorrow. So, that was kind of interesting in that meeting today. The next headline is that an investigation finds United States predictive policing tool called PredPol, PredPol, which is used countrywide, often perpetuates biases, directing police to poor Black and Latino neighborhoods. Let's have a looky-loo at this one. I will pin it at the top of the Clubhouse room. Cheryl will pin it at the top of the Twitter space. And this article says that police departments across the country are using a pre-crime tool. Crime prediction software promises to be free of biases. New data shows it perpetuates them. It says in 2018, police in the city of Plainfield, New Jersey, started using software called PredPol to predict where crime would likely happen. The Markup, which is the publication, and Gizmodo, which is another publication, analyzed those crime predictions and found a stark pattern. Take these two neighborhoods in Plainfield, which are less than a mile apart. In one neighborhood, the software predicted only 11 crimes. In the other neighborhood, the software predicted 1,940 crimes. The neighborhood where the software predicted fewer crimes had far more white residents. Dozens of police departments across the U.S. used the same software with the same results. Compared to neighborhoods in Los Angeles or Orange County, Florida, We analyzed more than 5 million predictions, and neighborhoods with fewer predictions consistently had higher what? We analyzed more than 5 million predictions, and neighborhoods with fewer predictions consistently had higher population of white residents.
I wanted to tell, hey, this is Al. You know that bias is created off of like the data, off of previous data, and that data is already skewed because if the police are already predisposed to going into certain neighborhoods and arresting people based on how they look or whatever, then of course those areas are going to be predicted to have more crime and all those other things. I know where I was working at, they kind of abandoned that tool.
Okay. The company that makes it sent more than 5.9 million of these crime predictions to law enforcement agencies across the country, from California to Florida, Texas to New Jersey, and found those reports on an unsecured server. And residents of neighborhoods where Pred poll suggested few patrols tended to be wider and more middle and upper income. Many of these areas went years without a single crime prediction. By contrast, neighborhoods the software targeted for increased patrols were more likely to be home to blacks, Latinos, and families that would qualify for the federal free and reduced lunch program. Aha, so lunches leads to crime. Free lunches leads to crime? Is that the connection?
Isn't that like pred poll sounds like predator poll more than protection? I don't know why, but
I
it
think it
just
means
does.
predictive policing is my guess.
Yeah,
There's no
it sounds like predatory policing more so than anything
yeah,
else.
prediction and pred. Yeah, it's an interesting point. The same suffix or prefix. These communities weren't just targeted more. In some cases, they were targeted relentlessly. Crimes were predicted every day, sometimes multiple times a day, sometimes in multiple locations in the same neighborhood. Thousands upon thousands of crime predictions over years. A few neighborhoods in our data were the subject of more than 11,000 predictions. The software often recommended daily patrols in and around public and subsidized housing, targeting the poorest of the poor. Quote, communities with troubled relationships with police, this is not what they need, says Jay Stanley, a senior policy analyst at the ACLU Speech, Privacy, and Technology Project. They need resources to fill basic social needs, yet the pattern repeated nearly everywhere we looked. Neighborhoods in Portage, Michigan, where Pred poll recommended police focus patrols on 9 times the population of black residents as the city average. Looking at predictions on the map, local activist Quentin Bryant said, quote, it's just giving them a reason to patrol these areas that are predominantly black, brown, and poor folks. In Birmingham, Alabama, where about half of the residents are black, the areas with the fewest crime predictions are overwhelmingly white. The neighborhoods with the most have double the city's average Latino population. The higher density of police presence reopens generational trauma and contributes to how these communities are hurting. In Los Angeles, even when crime predictions seemed to target a majority white neighborhood, like in Northridge, they were clustered on the blocks that are almost 100% Latino. The neighborhoods in the city where the software recommended police spend the most time were disproportionately poor and more heavily Latino than the city overall. Quote, these are the areas of LA that have the greatest issues of biased policing. About 35 miles outside of Boston, Predpol recommends police force focus their patrols in neighborhoods that had 3 times the Latino population and twice the low-income population as the city average. And then it talks about Chicago. And no one has done the work you guys are doing, which is looking at the data, said Andrew Ferguson, a law professor at American University. And I think you get the idea. So we shared
See,
that.
hey, this is Al. See, the thing is with public safety, they really do not have true data analysts. There, they actually have like police, like probably some seasoned police that look at the data. They're not people that look at it from a different lens. And then also too, instead of utilizing that software, like after the police department has gone through reform and using the data that's inputted from then on out, you probably wouldn't have this issue. But they're using old data and old analytics, which is the biggest problem. Like most of the police departments, they don't have IT. They actually have like cadets and stuff, depending on where you live. They have some police officers, or they have a unit that are like IT light. The police officers have an affinity for IT, so they get stuck in those areas. So I don't know. The police all around the U.S. need better reforms. They need to have a dedicated IT department along with analysts that do not have to be police officers. I'm Ellen
Yeah,
out.
I would say more so than anything else, just on this subject in general, when it comes to computers computing, right? It's especially when it's human language.
Demolaire, you're in the Matrix.
Like first tenets of building these type of data sets and stuff like that, because they never end right if it's just on one lens, so everything ends up skewed. Perspective.
It's also worth noting that these are probably based off of actual police reports, whereas some things don't go reported by the police. And so that's another area where the data might be slipping through the cracks.
That's a really important point, and I understand what the focus was, but just the absence of quote unquote white collar crime can, kind of supports some of the bias that, that all the crime is this kind of crime. And I think what part of kind of turning the ship on this whole issue is representing all the white collar crime that's committed, and that's just something that is helpful.
Okay. The next story is from the Washington Post that the Consumer Financial, Protection Board, the CFPB, has ruled that lets debt collectors now are able to send legally, they were probably doing it before, but now it's legal for them to send text messages and emails and private social media messages to people who owe money, and requires opt-out instructions, which is now going into effect. Federal regulators have given debt collectors the okay to pursue debtors via email, text messages, and social media sites. And they took to Twitter to say, unsure whether a debt collector is legitimate. The information provided in the validation notice may help you identify the debt, learn what is and what is included. And they shared that from their own personal Twitter account. The next article is from The Information. They say they have sources that Instacart is planning to launch a 15-minute or less grocery delivery pilot for U.S. customers from existing partner stores. Well, let's see what this says here. It says, for Instacart, the leading U.S. grocery delivery company, being fast may not be enough. The $39 billion valuation startup is planning to launch a pilot program to provide delivery of groceries or convenience items in 15 minutes or less to U.S. customers, says two people with direct knowledge of the plan. As part of the proposed program, Instacart would pay a company that manages couriers to quickly deliver goods from the same grocery stores whose merchandise Instacart already offers to its existing customers, most of whom currently receive their orders within 2 hours or less. Instacart recently asked several logistics companies to submit proposals for the ultra-fast delivery program, with plans to launch an early version of the service in the U.S. In a U.S. city as early as February, the people said. If it were to do so, Instacart would thrust itself into competition with the ultra-fast grocery delivery startups, including Joker, Getter, and Gorillas. If Instacart stuck with the program, it would suggest that the instant delivery model, which has faced some skepticism, could be here to stay, even as the startups in the sector burn through venture capital money. Yeah, again, it's journalists that don't understand business models of startups and venture capitalists. But of course, they're going into 15-minute delivery. This is everyone is getting into the 15-minute delivery in every country on the planet. And the question is, how fast can they automate the delivery to remove the humans from the factor? Because it turns out to be that the humans seem to be the weak link in that chain, because inevitably they get burnt out and then want to unionize. And whoever comes up with the first autonomous version, which, by the way, Uber has a whole network of cars driving all over the city all the time anyways. So it would only mean further utilization of their already existing travels. So it's no of additional burden or even cost for them to bring your groceries to you for the most part. If they could utilize some really clever artificial intelligence to map all of that out and use some predictive route systems so that they know, on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. where people are likely to request rides and be dropped off and all of that. And as soon as those cars become fully automated, which is starting to happen in cities, even San Francisco has fully autonomous, no human driver taxis. So it's coming. And once that's really happening, you can see Uber Eats will soon be doing a lot more than just your lunches and dinners. You'll be able to order pretty much anything. And then they're competing with Amazon. And if you thought Uber made a lot of money now, wait until you start doing all of your purchases through Uber instead of Amazon, because they'll bring it to you in 15 minutes instead of 24 hours. With barely any delivery cost. Something to think about. That having a autonomous delivery network is one of the most powerful things you can have. One of the most monetizable things you could ever devise. Which Tesla is very much in that game, because their autonomous cars conceivably can be part of that autonomous delivery network, even if they're privately owned by individuals who, when they're not utilizing the car, could allocate their vehicle to that delivery network grid and monetize it. And once that's fully functioning, Tesla will create specialized delivery vehicles that are a hybrid of human delivery and e-commerce delivery. It'll kind of be like they'll need to make a special use vehicle, but at that point they probably won't be in the business of selling people cars or vehicles. They'll be worth too much, and they'll want to keep it all for themselves. So, yeah, Instacart's going to get into that. Everyone's going to get into that. The whole future of that whole game is pretty clearly mapped out. If you're not doing 15-minute delivery, you're pretty much screwed. If you don't have autonomous vehicle plans, you're pretty much screwed. So make note of that. It's the people who have the autonomous delivery networks at this point, who's doing autonomous vehicles is Google with Waymo, which is operational in San Francisco, and Tesla and Amazon and potentially Uber. But Instacart will if they want to play in this game for the long term, meaning more than 5 years from now, they're going to have to do something in this autonomous delivery system. Although those Neuro vehicles just raised $600 million, and they might be able to partner with that. So there's ways around it if you're not developing the technology yourself. Next one from The Verge: the federal judge is blocking the Texas law that we talked about a month or two ago, which limits social media platforms from silencing conservative voices on their platform. So some Texas politician cooked up with this crazy idea that would make it illegal for Facebook to silence conservatives and their views, which, by the way, they were doing. Which, by the way, people were getting their posts removed and accounts banned and whatnot for suggesting that Kyle Rittenhouse was innocent. Which, by the way, Facebook themselves today, one of the headlines in the past 24 hours is precisely that Facebook is walking back their policy on specifically Kyle Rittenhouse. And the headline today is that a federal judge is now blocking that Texas law because it violates the First Amendment rights of those companies, those social media companies. They have the right to decide what's on their platforms. And you clicked I agree when you said I want to participate in this app. And that's a business that has, their own ability to decide what content they want inside their app. So, a federal judge has blocked the Texas law limiting social media platforms' ability to moderate content, saying that Texas law violates platforms' First Amendment rights. But, directly related, Facebook is changing their policy on the Kyle Rittenhouse issue, where they are no longer sending searches for Kyle Rittenhouse into a black hole, which is what they were doing. And they're no longer penalizing people for suggesting that Kyle Rittenhouse was innocent because a jury of his peers in a court found him, exonerated him. So he technically, legally, he is innocent. So it would be hard for social media platforms to continue to penalize users for stating something that is factually correct. So the next article is that Facebook partners with a UK-based revenge porn helpline to help people prevent intimate images from appearing online by uploading them to stopncii.org. Facebook's parent company Meta has worked with the UK-based nonprofit Revenge Porn Helpline to help build a tool that lets people prevent revenge porn. Facebook and Instagram's parent company partnered with the UK nonprofit to build a tool that let people submit nudes to a central website for removal from multiple platforms. Facebook's parent company worked with the UK-based nonprofit Revenge Porn Helpline to build a tool that lets people prevent their intimate images from being uploaded to Facebook, Instagram, and other participating platforms without their consent. The tool, which builds on a pilot program Facebook started in Australia in 2017, launched Thursday. It allows people who are worried that their intimate photos or videos have been or could be shared online, for example, by disgruntled ex-partners, to submit the images to a central global website, which then, well, this is peculiar. Hey, are you worried about somebody leaking your nude photos online? Just send your nude photos to us, and then we'll make a database of those. And if somebody else tries to upload the same photo, we will not allow that photo to be posted. The question is, who is going to preemptively send in their nude photos to this platform? Carl, are you going to send in your nude photos?
I don't think the camera can zoom in far enough, Tara. I was just going to say that this is a very similar software to what Apple was proposing as well, with their pornography settings and image sort of, what they were talking about integrating it with iCloud and whatnot. So it's interesting again that more and more companies are starting to employ this concept of hashing the image and using it as a obfuscated database and then comparing it against like images, but without any human access to the original image. So this is a cool usage of the technology. Yeah, but I think we're going to see this more and more.
So I had a meeting today, since we met last time, with a startup from Iceland who's visiting Stockholm today, who gave me one of the most interesting presentations I've seen in a long time, where they are using really advanced machine learning image recognition models to apply to not only images, but video, more importantly, where they can fingerprint and do object recognition and detection inside of photos and, more importantly, videos, so that if for example, the first use case they demonstrated was child pornography, where a lot of times the perpetrators who are trading this will intentionally edit the video so that it's not recognized by the traditional algorithms, by the file size and the traditional metadata stuff. But this is going deeper into the content and is able to fingerprint the content, so it doesn't matter even if you were to do an image mirror horizontal flip or a rotation of any number of degrees. It wouldn't matter. You could rotate it 180 degrees and have it play upside down. It wouldn't matter. You could still fingerprint the content hidden inside the video, even if you degraded the quality severely, even if you tried to disguise the content of the video significantly. It wouldn't matter. That it's almost like facial recognition for objects inside of videos, so that you would know that this video has been manipulated to try and stay hidden, and it could remove it. And the interesting part is they revealed in the meeting that Facebook is one of their biggest clients, and that they're using it hundreds of billions of times, on a daily basis on this massive global scale. So, and by the way, I need to, if Michelle's in the room, they actually have an issue at Facebook that they need help addressing. So I was going to connect them with Michelle. And anyways, the next article is, what do we got? Planned Parenthood Los Angeles says a hacker gained access to its network in October, compromising the information of 400,000 patients, including clinical data. A hacker gained access to the personal information of hundreds of thousands of Planned Parenthood patients. For those who don't know, in America, Planned Parenthood is where lots of young ladies go when they deal with all kinds of issues, sexually transmitted diseases, but very notably, if young ladies who may not even have health insurance need to seek counseling about abortions, Planned Parenthood is some kind of the first thing that comes to mind. So these 400,000 patients with Planned Parenthood Los Angeles, this is can be in many cases some very sensitive information, and it's being held as a ransomware attack, and it's currently unknown if they've paid the ransom. It seems that they haven't, and no doubt they've even said that they've called the authorities, like the FBI and the CIA, and they'll do their regular thing. They'll figure out who it is and hopefully get it all resolved without the compromising sensitive data or information getting out.
They're going to have to, right? My understanding of how this works in the US, this is going to be one of those things where ultimately they will take any resolution to the problem, because especially if if that data's been compromised and is somehow leaked out in any way. Pro-life and pro-choice, etc., is such a polarizing thing in the US, and they're I imagine most of their business model runs on reputation of discrepancy.
Okay.
Tyler?
Yes, sir.
Hi, by the way. The thing is that we're looping back to the one with the picture recognition thing. This is already available, but the other solution that I've seen regarding this is more of that you can make sure that you get notice if somebody published something of your equity, or rather your property that
right.
you have the copyright for example.
Right.
And how they do it there is that you actually install a client, and then you say, I want to protect the following documents and the following pictures. Please alert me if any of these ones surface on any platform anywhere. So this is actually a service that's available for professionals.
Yep.
So doing this for other kinds of pictures, it's a recent step. You are done.
Okay. So the next one is a new one that Smartling, a company which offers automated cloud-based translation tools, raises $160 million Indian food delivery service Swiggy will invest $700 million in its express delivery business called Instamart. A little close to Instacart. Currently available in 18 cities in India. As I told you, the 15-minute delivery thing is going global. Facebook makes two-factor authentication for high-risk accounts, an expansion of Facebook Protect, which covers 1.5 million accounts and will be in 50 countries by the end of 2021. Facebook said it will make two-factor authentication mandatory for high-risk accounts, as they should. Like journalists, politicians, and the like, I'm assuming, although that's a safe assumption. It says the move is part of a major expansion of Facebook Protect, the social giant's enhanced security program that's intended to protect the accounts of people who may be at particular risk, like human rights defenders, journalists, and government officials. Yep, nailed that one. The initiative helps these accounts adopt stronger security protections by simplifying security features, including two-factor authentication, and providing additional security protections for accounts and pages, including monitoring and potential hacking threats. Makes sense. Next up, from TechCrunch, Goalsetter is a startup which offers financial literacy education app for kids. Oh my God, we did it. Holy smokes, folks, we did it. We built an app that actually, there you go. Kudos. Take my money. Somebody actually made a worthwhile app. Goalsetter offers financial literacy education for kids. God bless you. Raises $15 million. There you go.
Okay, so they're not actually the first ones to do this. I mean, I imagine even the one I'm going to mention may not necessarily be the first ones to do this, but we actually use GoHenry for our own children. And I realized that my son was spending a large amount of time on there. I mean, we teach him financial literacy anyway and have done for many, many years. He's 10 now. But he's spending a lot of time on there. And what I realized...
Is he trading derivatives or what's he doing?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. He's trading the ticks better than I am at this point. No, what he was doing is they've actually integrated tuition into this. So they have this whole system of your avatar. And primarily, this is a child-friendly debit card, essentially what you have, and you can control it as a parent and whatnot. But built into it, they have these free training courses that build experience and everything else in your little avatar and whatnot. And they don't get anything for it, but he has just been hammering this, and he's spoken to his friends who've also got it, and they're doing exactly the same thing. And I tweeted about this a few weeks ago that this is wonderful that these apps are including these. I mean, they shouldn't have to, because parents and schools should both be doing this from a young age. But it's fantastic that this is a route that these apps are going in, where they're taking you step by step and they're teaching you things like compound interest to 10-year-olds, and he understands it because it's made in such a way where he can understand it. So kudos to this app, kudos to Goldsetter, kudos to GoHenry if you happen to be in the UK, and anybody else doing this.
Yeah, good stuff. Canadian video platform Rumble, popular with right-wing users, will go public via SPAC at a $2.1 billion valuation. Shift Smart, a labor marketplace that matches workers with shifts, raises $95 million. UN report that 3 billion people, or 37% of the world population, have never used the internet. We covered that one in a tweet 3 days ago. Bloomberg has sources that Weibo, the Twitter of China, and its shareholder Sina plan to price its Hong Kong second listing at $35. Who cares? Uber adds ride booking via WhatsApp in India. A first for Uber and an expansion of WhatsApp's capabilities in the country of India, as I told you would happen, because it already has happened in China with WeChat, a very similar app to WhatsApp. As you can tell by the name and the logo, they nearly have identical logos and the identical green color and the identical little white little phone and very similar names, WhatsApp and WeChat. I confuse them all the time. But China, moving as fast as they do, the Chinese version, WeChat, added the financial layer years ago, and people started trading money through the app. And that allowed this financial fintech layer in the messaging app, allowed other third-party apps like the Uber of China named Didi to book rides inside of WeChat. And that became wildly popular. And then the dating apps and the Airbnbs and every app in China wanted to tap into the billions of users that were using the app, because they can make the payments directly in the app. And I said, WhatsApp in America eventually will do the same. And we saw the headlines about a month ago, did we not, Vinay, that WhatsApp was starting to add payments in India? And I said, well, that's obvious where this is going. They're just copying the Chinese app who did this years ago. And they're going to try and become the super app, the Swiss Army knife of several products and services. And it's inevitable, totally inevitable. Vinay?
Yeah, and WhatsApp money is really picking up. There's going to be a lot more service providers as well as creators coming in and coming into WhatsApp for collecting money, right? So WhatsApp money is going to be huge.
You could be WhatsApp and make, $0 a year, or you could be add the financial layer and then enable all of hundreds of different products and services and make, $100 trillion a year. It's a really difficult decision. I wonder which way they're going to go. Maybe they're happy making nothing a year. We'll just let you use our app, and just send messages all day. Screw all that money. Who needs those billions of dollars? We're in this for the charity of letting people message grandma.
Yeah, and there's 227 banks in India that are supporting WhatsApp payments right now. So it's getting pretty ubiquitous. I mean, everybody's going to be able to do it.
Here come the super apps to the West, which is precisely why Zuckerberg was so interested in WhatsApp from the beginning, because he knew what WeChat was doing in China. So, Sounding Board, which operates a marketplace that connects employees with leadership coaches, raises $30 million. Facebook will no longer block searches nor remove praise of Kyle Rittenhouse on Facebook and Instagram after designating him a shooter in a mass shooting in 2020. There's that headline I was looking for earlier, which the headline we read 15 minutes ago was that a federal judge has said that the Texas law that was basically trying to control what it made it illegal for Facebook to remove conservative voices. A federal judge said that's a violation of their First Amendment rights. And now on the same day, Facebook is no longer blocking searches nor removing praise of Kyle Rittenhouse on Facebook or Instagram. Interesting turn of events there. And I want to see, there's a lot of people that are covering this, like The Verge, CNET, Newsweek, The Hill, The Independent, The Sun, Reuters. Reuters says Facebook removes curbs on praise searches for Kyle Rittenhouse. And The Verge says Facebook removes block on searches for Kyle Rittenhouse. Yep. Next up, Congress will hold a hearing with CEOs from Coinbase, Circle, FTX, Bitfury, Paxos, and Stellar on December 8th to discuss digital assets and the future of finance. Yep, as you should have done, a year ago. Why are they waiting? Why do they wait so long for this stuff? This is what needs to happen. Get all these folks in a room together and work this stuff out. And by the way, you'll remember Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, made it a point to go to Washington, D.C. and try and meet with everybody to work this stuff out, and he was rebuked. His emails to meet for coffee were not even responded to. And he's like, WTF, bro. We're trying to make some progress over here. We're trying to cooperate. Let's do this. What are we going to do? And they do. Congress needs to sit down with these folks. Now, the problem is that Congress is full of very senior people who have yet to figure out how to do a reply all on an email. So how can we expect them to understand what an NFT is or why it's valuable? That's going to be an interesting challenge. I don't know if there's enough time in the rest of their lives to figure out what an NFT is, or why anyone would pay $2 million for one. So that's going to be a really interesting meeting. I really hope it's recorded. I would love to listen to that meeting when they're trying to figure out how Ethereum works, or DAOs, or dApps, or any of it, or even Bitcoin for that matter. So, the next article. A look at Chinese extensive tech investments in Africa, including undersea cables, data centers, and fintech apps as part of its Digital Silk Road initiative, as Africa starts to realize, oh boy, we've got a whole lot of Chinese tech over here in our infrastructure, like our cellular networks, and we're not so sure that was a good idea after all.
Finally.
They're now starting to realize perhaps a little bit too late with these inner-sea cables. There's potentially a lot of vulnerabilities at play there. So the next one, AWS, Amazon Web Services, announced SageMaker Studio Lab, a free version of the SageMaker in public preview to help customers with little experience build, train, and deploy machine learning models. That's fantastic. Like, I love the idea of students playing with this stuff, or anybody getting their beak wet in machine learning, because there's a whole lot of interesting stuff to be done there still. In an internal Slack message, Mark Benioff, the CEO, founder of Salesforce, says that the newly appointed co-CEO, Brett Taylor, that was announced yesterday, will continue to report to him. So somebody at Salesforce leaked an internal Slack message, little internal communication, revealing that Mark Benioff is still the big boss, and that the title of co-CEO, that Brett, the co-CEO, will still have to report to Mark Benioff. Giving a little more context, a little more clarity into the nature of the power dynamic going on there at Salesforce. It looks like Mark is still in charge. Next up, TikTok adds monetization tools for creators, including Stripe-powered tips, just like in Clubhouse. The Clubhouse tip jar is precisely that, a Stripe-powered tips. So now they're getting very similar to the Clubhouse tip jar in TikTok. And also video gifts. What are video gifts? I don't know. Let's read the article and find out. So it's starting in the US, the UK, Germany, France, Italy, and Spain. It says TikTok today is introducing new ways for its creators to make money from their content. While already the short-form video platform allowed creators to accept virtual gifts from fans during TikTok live videos, a set of new features will allow creators to accept payments and gifts when they're not live streaming through the addition of tips and video gifts. These features are rolling out alongside the new Creator Next portal, which organizes all TikTok monetization opportunities in one place, which, mark my words, easy prediction, that will eventually become a marketplace of opportunities for content creators to match with products and services. Because you have a whole lot of people who sell stuff, who would like to reach the kids on TikTok. But to do that, they're going to have to partner with the most influential influencers on the platform. Those influencers don't normally have products and services of their own to sell. Now you see the opportunity for a fantastic marketplace where the content creators and influencers will wake up every morning and see a beautiful long list of opportunities of products and services to whore. And they can become a professional cyber prostitute. It's a beautiful match made in heaven. So that's here comes the money into not just TikTok. All the apps are going to do that. And it makes a lot of sense. And this is, in fact, the future of commerce, period. Because every TikTok and Twitter are now racing, and Instagram and Snapchat are all racing to make it super, super, super simple to put products into their apps to sell. The problem is Aunt Betty's Cake Shop has only 25 followers. Is there a way for Aunt Betty to partner with, Cousin Susie, who has 5 million followers? Yes, there is. That's what this whole the creator portal is all about. So that they could intelligently refer and match content or products and services with those influencers that are most relevant to hawk or hoard those products or services. So it's a win-win. Aunt Betty gets to a ton of visibility. And I'm hoping that best of all, it would be done in a way that could be done on a pay per action instead of pay per view. Although they'll probably give both options. So Aunt Betty selling the cakes would only have to pay a commission on a cake sale and wouldn't have to incur any upfront risk or costs that the creator might take the risk. we'll see what those networks end up looking like, if they're done on a cost per click basis or a cost per view basis or a cost per transaction basis is yet to be determined, but no doubt they are working all of that out in the background as we speak.
It wouldn't be so icky if it could be done in an organic way where it's people going promoting products they actually like and use because that's how they found them, rather than being pushed out the way you describe.
Yes, and by the way, this episode of Tech News Around the World is brought to you by Starbucks Pumpkin Spice Latte. The next one is, and you can click to order that latte and have it delivered in 15 minutes in my bio. So the next one is a look at Particle, founded by an ex-Christie's auction house executive and others, which plans to split Banksy's seminal piece called Love is in the Air, which is this picture of a young lady letting go of a heart-shaped balloon. And they're going to basically particleize the Banksy piece into 10,000 pieces in a 100 by 100 grid, meaning 10,000, 100 times 100. And those 10,000 little micro particles of the piece will be then sold as NFTs so that you can have fractional ownership of this Banksy's piece. It seems like a interesting idea. No doubt will be fraught with complexities, just as the Constitution DAO was. But nonetheless, it's worth, if people got a little extra Ethereum to splash around, let them try that, and let's find out where the bumps and bruises are on that road to the promised land of decentralized fractional ownership of everything from artworks to real estate.
So this brings up a really important point, because when you fractionalize something, that pushes it towards being a security.
Right.
And this topic actually came up 2 days ago in a discussion that I was having with God, I'm blocking her name. Somebody who's working on NFTs for carbon sequestration by farmers, and the how to and how not to unitize it.
Mm. Okay. Next up, the Facebook.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
I call all of these timeshare on steroids.
There's an element and a bit of a smell of that, yeah. And some of them can be less than ideal, and I really feel like we're in this awkward pregnancy phase with NFTs and their true best use cases, and that the principles and best practices are all going to have to be established here. There's going to be some casualties and definitely some bumps and bruises along the way, but like I said, let's let those people that got a little extra Ethereum to splash around on these Constitution DAO experiments, if they're willing parties, as long as they, of course, they're going to read those terms of service very carefully before they click the accept button. I'm sure of that. So yeah, we'll see what happens with this one. And hopefully we'll pave the road for, if we can theoretically, and we should be able to get to a place where fractional ownership of real estate and artworks and really anything, and simultaneously a kind of crowdfunding of, and even DAOs themselves could have fractional ownerships and monetary, that have sort of a value. And fundraisings. I really think it will be tremendously interesting for people to be able to put together initiatives to persuade politicians to act in particular ways as a sort of form of lobbying. What if I could raise $1 million? What if we could raise $1 million to get Joe Biden to sign something, or any politician in any country, or persuade a particular politician for not running for president and kind of buy them out of the race, for example? There's all kinds of really interesting ways that these technologies could and perhaps should be utilized. But it's going to be a bumpy road to get there. Okay, So next one is the Facebook papers. According to Forbes, the Facebook papers offer glimpses into how users perceive Facebook ad products, like the impact of its reaction emojis and the concerns raised by employees. And this is the dying last gasps of Forbes and trying to wring out any tiny fractional value out of that rag that was the Facebook papers. So watch the contortions that this Forbes staff member has to go through to try and make something interesting out of the Frances Haugen whistleblower Facebook files. And here's the headline: what the Facebook papers reveal about the social network's advertising business. Sounds promising. My expectation level, pretty reasonable. What do you got? You got some hot shit going on over here? A full 6 weeks after that train has left the station, I'm all ears. What do you got? And believe it or not, what he points to is that the emoji that a advertiser on Facebook ran an ad, and that on that ad, people are able to leave their emoji responses, like a thumb up on Facebook, right? So an advertiser makes a post of an ad. It's I think it was Lululemon in some sweatpants or some shit like that. And people left some thumbs up, some left thumbs down, and heaven forbid, holy smolies, somebody left an angry emoji. 5 people, in fact, left an angry emoji, and this led the advertiser to complain to Facebook about the emoji and the power of the emojis, and they didn't like this negative emoji being seen with their brand, understandably, right? Believe it or not, that's entirely what this article is about. One document from February 2016 raises questions about the impact of Facebook's reaction emojis, which debuted earlier in the same year. A post written by an unnamed Facebook employee detailed feedback from an advertising client who asked that the angry emoji be removed from their ads. This advertiser spent nearly $1 million a year. Although just 5 of the 75 emoji reactions were angry on the ad, that was 5 angry too many. The client complained to the Facebook employee, explaining, quote, "It's bad for our brand to have people publicly panning our ads on Facebook, and that I'm sure it's bad for our ROI also. This is a particular problem for us." And so the Facebook employee, mentioned this in this internal document, which has now found its way to Forbes, and they felt the need to write about it. And as it says in the opening paragraph, the Facebook papers have been revelatory when it comes to how the company formerly known as Facebook deals with content moderation and the wide variety of other issues. However, they also sheds light on the social networking advertising business and how users respond to ads they see. The thousands of pages of internal documents gathered and released by whistleblower Frances Haugen provide a myriad of examples of how Facebook, which rebranded itself as Meta last month, and its subsidiaries develop ideas, roll out products, and research users. And then gives the example as the centerpiece of this whole story as the one I just read for you. That one advertiser was upset that people were using the angry emoji and responding to their ad. That's how you know we are scraping the bottom of the barrel of these Facebook files that Frances Haugen has leaked to the journalists. That they feel that this is worth your time to even read this trash. So, next up, Reddit announces real-time features including live upvotes and downvotes, live comments and viewer counts, and typing indicators like in your messaging apps. Everything's going live on Reddit to make it feel more engaging, no doubt. Twitter bans sharing private images and videos without consent. We covered that one yesterday. So that is your top boring stories of today, December 2nd. Let's do a refresh, Cheryl, to see if there's any new ones that have come in since we started. And there's not. So those are your boring headlines that your cousins and coworkers will be talking about at your barbecue next week. But now we get into the tweets, which is what we've all been waiting for. And so the first tweet is from Evan, and it says, lithium from Germany geothermal plants could supply 1 million electric vehicles a year from 2025. So I'm tweeting that one out. I'm retweeting Evan's tweet. And if you'd like me to retweet your tweet, it's really simple. If you find any good articles that you think we should discuss, like the one Evan just shared, simply include our Twitter account, TNATW, as part of your tweet. We will see it. If we think it's worth sharing, we will retweet your tweet. to our how many Twitter followers we got there at Tech News Twitter account now, Cheryl? I don't know. It's like 7,000 or something like that. Where is it at? Yeah, 6,600.
Yeah, around 7,000.
Right. So that's how the game works. And now we're going to read through the tweets and retweet a bunch of the best tweets that people have been sending in since we met yesterday. So the next one that I see here is that Facebook executive in charge of the company's cryptocurrency push has just quit, from the Washington Post, Katerina. So I'm tweeting that one out, and that's obviously about David Marcus. We shared that one. The next one, also from Katerina, from CNBC, Goldman Sachs unveils Amazon-backed cloud service for Wall Street. The move puts the 152-year-old Goldman Sachs in the unusual position of being a provider of cloud services for Wall Street. Quote, the bank is opening up access to its trove of market data and software tools to hedge funds and asset managers in an offering designed with Amazon's cloud division. This is very clever. Goldman Sachs has built some proprietary tools that give them an asymmetrical advantage. And now they're productizing those tools and selling those tools, essentially. They're cloud-based tools. They're software, after all. And it's a partnership with Amazon and AWS to distribute those tools. I did something similar with Microsoft Azure with my tool. So it's a smart way to monetize the products and services you've built for yourself internally. The next one, also from Katerina, says that physics-informed deep learning to assess carbon dioxide storage sites. Pumping carbon dioxide underground may help combat the warming of the atmosphere, but finding appropriate underground sites that could safely serve as reservoirs can be complicated. Yep. Next one from NBC News. The majority of mumps cases are among the vaccinated, strangely. CDC finds mumps cases continue to circulate in the U.S., largely among vaccinated people, including children. And adult diaper sales in China could exceed infant diaper sales by 2025, as the population is rapidly aging. China's aging population and falling birth rate mean its diaper market is nearing an inflection point. And we need a new neologism or term for that tipping point, when the diaper sales become adult diaper sales predominantly. The diaper flip. What do we peak diapers? What do we call it? If you have an idea, raise your hand for what we're going to name the phenomena of the diaper flip, when your country has more old people than young people. For people who study demographies, they call it a terminal demography. When you have too many young people, far more old people, you have an inverted demographic pyramid. But how do we address the diaper conundrum? NASA says huge, potentially hazardous asteroid will break into its closest period. On December 11th, NASA expects asteroid number 4660 to be at its closest point to Earth over a 20-year period. And potential cause of Alzheimer's has been discovered. The form in which isomers take can increase the risk of developing dementia, researchers report. Drugs are in development to improve the situation. New UC Riverside research points to cells slowing ability to clean themselves as a likely cause of unhealthy brain buildup. And okay, next up is from Piotr. Facebook uncovers Chinese networks behind a fake expert. We covered that one at length today. Thank you for that one, PT Yoder. Messi has one about government hunts for African visitors in the Bangkok Post. Government hunts for African visitors. Omicron bug feared to be in the country. Okay, so this is from Thailand, and as somebody who lives in Thailand for the past 6 years, I'll shed a little cultural insight perspective here. Thailand did, for until relatively recently, a phenomenal job of stopping COVID from even getting in the country, and it really wasn't in the country for the longest time until relatively recently, until India had Delta, which led to problems in Myanmar. Myanmar has an incredibly long 1,000-kilometer border through the jungle with Thailand, and Burmese often climb over those hills to enter Thailand for employment, and that is an incredibly difficult border to make through mountainous jungles. And so some Myanmar, because they were in the middle of a military coup, didn't have a lot of access to vaccines and resources to mitigate the damages of COVID, and many of those people came into Thailand through the border, which we were unable to stop, where we previously didn't really have any COVID. And the problem is, so that Thailand really does not want the new variant, Omicron, to enter Thailand. They will go to great lengths to stop that from happening because they are based on a tourism economy. And right now, November, December, January, February, March, April is when Thailand makes all of its money from tourism. It's called the high season. It's when all the Europeans realize we live in a really shitty part of the world in the winter. Let's go to Thailand. And the entire world descends on Bangkok. And that's why Bangkok is, in fact, by a very wide margin, the most visited city on the planet. Far more than Paris, Tokyo, London, many of them combined. So now you know why they're incredibly careful to prevent Omicron from entering Thailand, because it will ruin the economy. Because they're based on tourism. So they want to make sure that everyone who comes in is carefully screened. So if some folks had managed to come in from Africa recently, Thailand is going to do everything it can to try and track those people down. You could use the word hunt, as this journalist did in the Bangkok Post. And the headline says, "Government hunts for African visitors." Obviously, that sounds very insensitive. Thais are not very politically, PC sensitive like the Western world is about grammar like that. They're just...
Can I chime in, Tyler?
Of course you can when I finish the point. So, okay. Omicron bug feared to be in the country, and the Immigration Bureau and the Ministry of Public Health are, trying to do contact tracing, as they've quite successfully have done in Thailand, actually, even though they do it undigitally. They're not using apps or anything digital. They're doing it literally by word of mouth of, have you seen this person in this photo? Did they go this place? And Thailand's quite amazing in this regard, in being able to communicate and find people when they need to find them. So the African visitors are believed to be in a major tourist destinations, including Bangkok, obviously. And the authorities are trying to reach them and ask that they undergo a test to find out if they have the new strain, National Police Chief General Sawat said. Don't panic. The police are urgently working together with the Ministry of Public Health to take care of this matter. The immigration police and the ministry are also maximizing COVID-19 control measures at the airports in the face of escalating health threats reportedly brought about by the new variant, they said. Okay, go ahead, Messi.
Well, here is the issue for me personally. There has been a lot of new studies that's showing that a lot of European countries have actually had the Omicron way before South Africa. Yep. It is just South Africa was able to sequence the variant. But Thailand and other countries are just focusing on South Africa. Mm-hmm. So, for example, there has been a study already that Netherlands have found from patients that they went back and look, and they think that there are even at least a minimum of 5 cases before even South Africa sequenced it and generously shared it, and didn't keep it quiet. And why is not Thailand chasing all the Holland people in Thailand? Yes. And most likely, actually, there are a lot of Europeans, just like you nicely pointed out. A lot of people go from Europe to skip the winter. Why aren't they chasing all that? UK found out a lot of cases and stuff. Because now South Africa has already found out, they shared it with people, so they know exactly what to look for. So when they go back and look around, they are really finding out that this case has been around in many countries, really. So why aren't they chasing and finding out all the Dutch people or the German people or the UK people? Why just Africans? And when I looked at the article, they are looking for Africans who have been in Thailand since November 15. So why don't they just go back to November 15 and look for every country, which is by some I looked at. I could be definitely wrong here, but 20 something countries are now reporting they have the case. Why aren't they looking in those countries?
It's a great question.
That's the issue.
Yep. Totally great question. So, yeah, because they're misinformed.
That's exactly my whole point. I think that a lot of countries, I mean, I'm not going to say all, have a pre-existing conception already about Africa. They already have, one thing somebody said, I don't remember which article, said that if COVID was really discovered not in China, if it was discovered first in Africa, oh my goodness, they would have just locked African doors and just throw away the keys. It's just we do have that preconception and prejudices and biases, and we just need a little bit to push us over that instead of following the science and following other things. COVID has been around almost 2 years now, and it has been in many countries, and we have used many mitigations, many variants. We have dealt with Delta as well. So, like I said, South Africa has a very good healthcare. Like everyone said it on this platform, in this room, that we discussed it for days now. They were able to go back and good for them find out, and they are good. They shared it, but then just every single country, the bias just came into the surface and say, oh, let's just stop only African countries, even though immediately after South Africa shared that sequencing of the variant, every other country is looking and they are finding out that they probably had it even before, but no one is looking into those countries. And how do we avoid that bias, that preconception that we have in our head, and that leads us into this kind of actions? Yes. That's the sad part of this.
What do you think how do you think they came to their decision about their actions?
Well, I don't think I want to venture into how every single country or the island, why they are doing that. But like you said, I think there has been Ebola, there's a pandemic, which has been, in other countries as well. But we just always think the worst of Africa, even though Africa has a lot of great things. And this is why China and the West is scrambling to get, the resources out of Africa. But we do also have that preconception. So when we hear a few things, we just have those things and without even doing any more research. And we just jump in and we say, you know what, let's do this before, and then we'll think about it later. So I'm not a person who's going to assume what people think and what led them to that decision. But what I can see is the decision wasn't right. If they do something, they do it the same and fairly to everyone. At least to everyone they think have the case, not, a blanket down of every other country. But I think I feel like as an African and also as a Canadian who lived in Canada as well, I do see those things happen all the time because we do have a preconception.
Yeah.
So I agree that there are, a lot of this does have to do with preconceptions. From the point of view of simply containing an emerging pathogen, which really this variant is. It's, related to a pathogen we're still struggling with, but it potentially has even more troublesome properties. It's reasonable for a country to either, like Israel, to say, okay, until we understand things better, nobody's coming in, or to somewhat more rationally and precisely figure out, okay, where are the potential sources where there are high rates of community transmission, and focus on those. And it remains the case that South Africa is one of them. But another part of this is that everybody should be screened on both ends, and honestly, uh, isolating in a verifiable way, the way Australia did. And that's how we can contain it, so that we can focus. And this is the really important thing: focus resources on eliminating this variant, and that would mean assisting the affected areas with lots and lots of resources to prevent spread, like high quality masks and 95s, and lots of rapid testing, and everything else that you need to do this right, as only a few countries have. But some countries have been able on multiple times to completely contain and bring prevalence down to zero. Japan has effectively done that, and so have others. And actually, Tyler, I did want to ask you, in Thailand, what's the masking situation like?
All the time, every time, no exceptions.
And are they shifting to N95s or KN94s for everybody?
It's a great question. Recently, they had zero concern for the type of mask, and you had people using, just utterly ridiculous masks, and it didn't matter what you used, just as long as your mouth was covered. And now there's more of a sensitivity to the type of mask. That's a very recent development.
Yeah, if they would double down and triple down on that, and also go for making sure that they fit well, that could make an enormous difference.
Yeah, they're quite good on the. I mean, one of the things that Thailand does that I'm surprised the rest of the world doesn't do is every entry at every building is required to have alcohol and a self-checking heat thermal sensor, which I think you can buy on Amazon for $5, because every building has it. If you want to open your business doors, you must have this self temperature check, where you just put your hand on the temperature check. You don't even touch it. You just put your hand right next to it, and it will tell you your temperature as you enter. And if your temperature is too high, it will make a sound. And at the same time, before you even touch that, you do the alcohol, and you do that, every time you go into any building, and they won't let you into the building unless you use the alcohol and do the temperature check with your hand. It's of no hindrance or burden to anybody, and it's a relatively tiny cost to the businesses. So I understand it's not going to catch everybody, but it potentially could inform a lot of people, potentially a lot of positive upside, very little downside to that. Very little people, have any problem with doing that. Even people who don't like wearing masks, although they don't have the option in Thailand, even people who don't like masks don't mind taking a tiny little temperature check to enter a building. So I think even they would agree that people with high temperatures in the time of a pandemic should probably, the businesses and everyone in the business should be notified that, you have a temperature if you're entering the building. So next up, we have a whole bunch of tweets, is how RCC sends in this one. The title says, how Spotify is slated to earn $1 billion in ad revenue despite Apple's crackdown on data tracking. The surprisingly simple ad strategy that any business can use to future-proof earnings, which Spotify is doing because they're quite brilliant about this kind of stuff. It talks about Apple's mission to increase its user protections isn't new. And while Facebook wasn't totally wrong, it wasn't entirely right either. Business whose ad strategies are rooted in first-party data remain unaffected. Or in some cases, there's Spotify, ad revenue actually skyrocketed, with ad revenue expected to reach $1 billion by the close of 2021, because Apple ad tracking is actually good for business. Data is the world's most valuable resource, but what every business needs to understand is that not all data is acquired equally. First-party data is, of course, superior to third-party data, and those whose ads depend on third-party data are those who risk getting the rug pulled out from underneath them at any time. Yep, indeed. You got to have your own data, which often means you got to have your own app and devices and all that. So Spotify's got a whole bunch of data about their users to build an ad network. And then Messi, speaking of Africa, you sent in a really interesting one about Zanzibar. Zanzibar to be fully covered by balloon-driven mobile internet. Is Kenya next? World Mobile, a London, UK-based mobile network provider, is launching a unique hybrid mobile network supported by low-altitude balloons. Is this for real, Messi? Balloon internet in Zanzibar. So the next one that I have is...
Quick point. This is what Google had been working on for a while in their Loon project.
Project Loon.
Which they decided was too difficult for them. So it's interesting to see that this is being taken up again. It's kind of an obvious thing to do if you can execute it.
Yep. More than 200,000 deaths could be annually prevented if countries made it more safe for biking. Biking plays a significant role in urban areas and has been suggested as a tool to promote public health. So if you had safer biking, you could have a lot less deaths. You'd have healthier people, which is kind of an interesting argument. So I'm retweeting that one from Saudamini to the Tech News Twitter account. COVID-19 mobile robot could detect and tackle social distancing violations. A new strategy to reduce the spread of COVID-19 employs a mobile robot that detects people in crowds who are not observing social distancing. And Cheryl's going to jump in here and said, that's what we've been doing in Singapore since the beginning, using the Boston Dynamics dog robots, which would go around and notice if people were not recognizing social distancing and maybe even issuing them a ticket. So, this is, by Singapore standards, kind of an old idea. The Saudamini sends in this one about engineers create a perching bird-like drone robot. They added kind of like bird-like claws to a drone so it could land in a tree. And I just tweeted that to the Twitter account so that you can see it. And the next one is a company called Ambrain launches Dots Tune True wireless earbuds in India. Why are you sharing that one, Saudamini? That seems rather mundane. Another earbud company. And Tesla headquarters officially moves from California to Texas. Tesla said it had about 71,000 employees worldwide. And this is Elon Musk making good on his promise to move out of California due to his little Twitter spat with one of the politicians in the Bay Area near the Fremont factory who said, fuck Tesla, publicly on Twitter. And Elon responded by saying, message received, and then vowed to move out of California to Texas, which he's now done. WhatsApp says it banned more than 2 million accounts in India in October. WhatsApp received a total of 500 grievances from users reporting regarding account support, ban appeals, safety product support, and more. And this is the monthly report that the American tech companies have to provide to India to show what they've done in their moderation efforts. And in 1 month, WhatsApp bans more than 2 million accounts in India. And the first case of Omicron COVID variant identified in the United States, according to CNET. So just tweeted that one out. Instagram CEO to testify before Congress for the first time, I believe on next week, the week of December 6th. So we will watch with incredible fascination as he explains to senators why their grandkids have so many likes and followers of their accounts. Federal judge blocks Texas social media censorship law. We covered that one. And scientists claim big advance in using DNA to store data from the BBC. Scientists say they have made a major step forward in storing information in the molecules of DNA. Microsoft Edge buy now, pay later scheme met with criticism, to which Microsoft says, yeah, we don't care. We're going to make money. Go ahead and be critical all you like while we make billions of dollars. The Edge browser has added a credit scheme, which users have labeled as exploitative, to which Microsoft says, go fuck yourself. So we're going to make a few $1 billion every year from adding buy now, pay later to the browser, Microsoft Edge browser, and everyone else is doing it too. So if you don't like it, feel free to make your own browser company or use other browsers that don't have it. Match.com settles with legal fight with Tinder founders for $441 million. Dating app Tinder's founders claimed in court that Match had undervalued the firm by $10 billion during the acquisition in 2017, sued, and now Match is settling with the three founders for $441 million. And so I did have a quick little DM with my buddy Sean Rad, who's the founder and CEO of Tinder, congratulating him on this, and he said, "Thanks, bro," or something to that effect. So when it's
like numbers or some dollar signs next to that, thanks.
What did I say? I'll quote it specifically. I said, where is he? Oh, I'm in the wrong account. Here we go. Now I'm in my account, and I said, where did it go? Oh, there it is. I said, just saw the news. Congrats. And he said, thanks, bro! Exclamation mark. So it was a very short conversation. Yeah, so that was many years in the works, and it was rather low key until the very end. But now the word's out. Cryptocurrency executives to be questioned in Congress. We covered that one. Washington is joining other governments in scrutinizing the rapidly expanding sector more closely. What is this crypto stuff? And Singapore's fake news law used 33 times to date, including 19 times swift action against pandemic falsehoods, has helped to build trust about vaccines. So Singapore is policing misinformation about vaccines, which is something you can do in a geographically smaller country. WhatsApp, Twitter, and others have placed journalism in the hands of citizens. Yep, that's the headline, and indeed they have. Meta removes China-based network for spreading false claims about COVID. We covered that one. IT spending in India expected to cross $100 billion next year. That is unbelievable. Cities or even countries used to celebrate $1 billion in funding per year. India's doing $100 billion. Air purifiers are going to be a game changer in the near future. Says who? I believe it's Dyson. So people are going to find out that air purifiers can be used to reduce COVID in offices and in their homes, and there will be a huge run on air purifiers, very likely. And Cheryl's got her hand up. Uber and WhatsApp launch ride booking via messaging app in India, as I predicted, and now we have the headline to prove that. Grabs, which is the delivery company in Southeast Asia based out of Indonesia, where our friend Jay works. I saw him on stage earlier. Oh, there he is. Hey, Jay, we got Grab in the news. Let's get you up on stage. It says, Grab's NASDAQ debut to set tone for Southeast Asians' tech listings. Grab, Southeast Asia's biggest ride-hailing and delivery firm, makes its market debut on Thursday after a record $40 billion, I believe, in the past quarter. And indeed, Grab is just absolutely dominating in Southeast Asia and continuing to grow and add more products and services, which is kind of Jay's area of expertise there, as one of the leaders of the design there for Grab. And it looks like he's not able to accept the invitation at the moment, but I will retweet that out to the Tech News Twitter account in the meantime. And if anyone has a headline they'd like to share, just raise your hand, and Cheryl will bring you up on stage for you to share, and we can even pin it or you can pin it yourself to the top of the room. And I've got an endless stream of tweets to go through. Mathematicians hail breakthrough in using AI to suggest new theorems. Their work examined knot theory and representation theory, areas of pure mathematics which typically depended on human intuition. But now, just one more category falling under the AI umbrella. LinkedIn launches in Hindi to boost access to 600 million people. So if you thought your LinkedIn connection requests were a little out of hand to begin with, you're about to make a whole bunch of new Indian contacts on LinkedIn in the very near future, with 600 million more people coming in. Very interestingly, LinkedIn just left China permanently and just joined India, which is kind of an interesting little symbolic kind of exemplification of exactly what's been happening kind of in tech generally, which is that a lot of the investors who are investing in China are moving to India. A lot of the apps that used to be popular in India were Chinese are now banned and being replaced by Indian apps. And it's like India is the new China. It's just absolutely booming. And I'll use that moment to plug my own monthly tech events, which will be starting in Bangalore in January, COVID permitting. So fingers crossed. And speaking of India, the next one is from the Times of India. Just sharing now to the Tech News Twitter account. It says, you won't be able to downgrade your iPhone after this iOS update. The tech giant Apple regularly stops signing legacy codes after the new iOS build is launched, as it allows the company to keep more devices on a future operating system. Fair enough. The next one is China-based COVID disinformation operation pushed fake Swiss scientists. And again, for the fifth time, we covered that one. Donald Trump's social media venture seeks to raise $1 billion. Trump Media, which has yet to roll out the Truth Social app, says it already stands to receive $293 million if its deal to list in the New York Stock Exchange goes through. But apparently it wants to raise $1 billion before it even launches. Now we're getting into Crazyville.
What? Crazyville?
Yeah. The Trump social network called Truth Social, which already has gone public as a SPAC. Has anyone checked the latest market cap on Truth Social? I don't recall what the ticker was. Anywho, from Square to Block, another tech company changes its name, this time Square, changing its name to Block. And Zoom gets new features, attendance, status, polling, and more, as Zoom gets more multi-featured. Google Messages gets Nudges feature with latest beta update. If you are using the beta version of Google Messages app, then you can immediately activate the Nudges feature. Indian government has no plans yet to make Google and Facebook pay for news in India. A lawmaker has floated the idea, but it's not happening yet, as they were trying to doing in Australia. And what else? I think that takes us to the top of the hour. It does. So we will pause there and meet again tomorrow for our regular Friday gathering. And do follow the Tech News Twitter account and maybe myself if you want to follow us in Twitter. And thank you to everybody joining us in Clubhouse for another fun tech news around the world. And we will meet you all again mañana. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody.